Welcome, welcome. We are today once more talking about trolls. Won't be the last time, however, we talk about trolls. And I forgot something already. Hold up. There we go. There we have it. The Streamlabs is up. Everything appears to be running as planned. And so now we will descend into the halls of the mountain. And we'll head to. We're not actually heading to Norway though, as much as I would like to. So I didn't really get to finish last week. I mean, what I did talk, have that expanded perspectives, which I have been listening to. That went on repeat for the past week, just trying to figure out what we're experiencing. But hail to y'all. All right. So I remember actually in that expanded perspectives episode that I've watched, it's like 7 years old. It's like the best information you're gonna find on trolls. So I'm not sure what this is gonna. I'm not sure. I don't speak Norwegian. Are they asking you for cookies? I think they are. I guess. Hang on, let me. Translate this to English first. Well, this is Gabrandund. It's a paper I forgot where in Norway. And it's really hard. Yeah. Just looking. Like, there's some interesting stories, but I think you gotta pay for this. So just check, it's 207. I'm not sure. All right. Question. Would you like me to pay for this Norwegian newspaper? it's actually really cheap because I pretty much be paying 9 cents for this. Hmm. I'll give it some thought. I do want to just because some of these stories you're allowed to. Hmm. These are critically injured after. So these could be, but what really gets me is, and I will bring up actually the. I'm going to. All right. So that's they're talking about the pair we just showed you. It's Gabran, I think.
Local newspaper there in Norway. Gudbrandsodden.
And Bronsodil. Try saying that a couple times. I'm just looking at some of the key. Someone the snake pit posted a really cute image of, I guess, their guinea pig wearing a bee costume. SAS. So, this is interesting. I'm gonna first try and read this in Norwegian and try to get a grip of what I'm even, because apparently actually where I live right now, there's supposed to be thunderstorms, but according to the radar, really. So let's see. So SAS flytåg av in Matosum. Eta fly pod Femaga. Let's actually first, because then we'll get back to that.
Is the name of this newspaper, and it says a bizarre car
Yeah, I have
accident.
a subscription to that.
Do you get that?
Yeah.
All right. I don't forget what their local football team is, but
The comic section of that paper is amazing.
I got you. Yeah, fair. It says a bizarre car accident has happened on one of our mountain roads between Vinstra and Galal. A brand.
So I'm going to actually check. So Vinstra, I'm not sure where that is. It's actually in like main area of North. And there's Galal. So these, apparently, according to this, these trolls ain't just in Finnmark.
Brand new and deserted BMW was found totally wrecked this morning. The police admits that the destruction of the vehicle seems uncalled for.
I'll do some research. I'm not sure what I'm yeah.
As there was no sign of a collision with another car. Neither were there any skid marks in the gravel cover of the road indicating a panic stop for moose or sheep. The wire fence along the road was ripped open. But I have yet to see a perfectly maintained wire fence around here.
That is also pretty interesting. Get to see when we were checking, and apparently a lot of people actually do think there's a lot of the electric fences up in Finnmark are actually meant to keep trolls out, and not just something that was in Troll Hunters, which, by the way, it's a great movie. The review, I've got to work on that. Don't know if it's coming out. You'll see it tonight. Hopefully.
The policeman told the reporter. The presumed car owner was found in the vicinity in a severe state of shock and disorder. He was taken to Lillehammer Hospital by the ambulance just in case alcohol, they believe, was the culprit. An eyewitness, however, claims that the hysterical and shaking man screamed again and again, "It bloody stomped my car on purpose," while the ambulance personnel worked hard trying to tie him to the stretcher and eventually succeeded in calming him down with appropriate drugs. You like that? It
That is
stomped
crazy.
my car.
Okay, so the SAS plane story, it was actually saying so on S Plano's probably just, so this looks like it's probably just a normal those things happen. I don't think there's any control substance.
Now, there were some other incidents that goes, apparently in 1982, there was a crash landing of a little commuter plane. And the witnesses claimed that what they had seen was British fighter.
And I think we talked about that. The plane crash. There was an actual plane crash. It occurred, I think, during the Able Archer exercises. So very strange. I'm going to actually try and get a subscription. Let's not do that. I don't want to give any public information away. Should have thought about doing that before. Maybe next week I'll have to do that. I do think that's interesting, and I think maybe Windall. That could be. It could very well have been a reason. Not so sure it's totally. These Swedish trolls, they sound more like the Sasquatches when you actually get a description. But I want to. I'm not playing it.
Norwegian.
Let's actually. No, why don't we?
For some reason.
Now, Kyle was talking, like I said, and he discussed about the great Norwegian mountain troll photo that he
So
posted.
this photo is. It's actually fake, and there's actually some videos on YouTube that show why exactly it is. So they use a picture of a troll from, I believe, one of the posters or from one of the scenes in Troll Hunter, and it's actually very well done. I will give the person credit. They've added the effects. This is, if I saw this without any contact, which is how I actually came across it without any contact, I would 100% assume this was a real thing. It's not. I'm telling you, it's not. I mean, unless something else comes out.
We discussed RAF recon flight back in 42 in December. If you look at the picture, look, you could swing it both ways. Does it look real? It might. Does it look fake? Yeah, it might. I tell you this, I dug and dug and dug. You can't really find a lot more about that photo. All the information you can find is that, which almost makes it seem like it's not real. It almost makes it seem like it was made strictly to be a one.
Yeah, we're just gonna watch this because we didn't get to finish it up last time, so we're just gonna rewatch it. And why not? It's a great one. You gotta watch it. Actually, you gotta watch the full thing because they first have some stories about some really cool stuff, some freaky stuff, which I kind of want to get to, but I'm kind of trying. And next week, I'm planning on talking UFOs.
Piece little thing,
So I'll
kind of
let
like a little Slender
people talk.
Man photo, and there's no more information about it, and that's it. Or it could definitely be done that way, so there's no more digging to be done, where you can easily wipe it away. So I got to looking into this stuff. Now, there's a lot of history that goes into it, and even the Troll Hunter movie tells a lot of stuff that's going on with actual researchers there are Norwegian and Swedish and stuff researchers, like they research Bigfoot over here, or Loch Ness monster researchers. They have troll researchers. Now, of course,
Which that's crazy in itself.
it is, which is funny.
That is one of the weirdest things.
Because we've not been raised that way. Where over there, they may think it's insane for us to believe, in a chupacabra or to look at Bigfoot. But when you get into these troll stories, something about these troll stories draw me in. The idea of these creatures being out there and being, old as time and all this. The stories that I could find, they believe that these trolls appear in these Norse mythology tales that descend from the Jotun, which is a race they say was very similar to the Titans of ancient Greece. The story says that they're sworn enemies of the gods and that they separated from humans in these remote mountains and forests and up in the hills, which you would think. Now, there's also a name where when I say Jotun or Jotun, it's Jotun, but you also find a Jotnar, a Jotnr, and they're the same thing. They're these very giant creatures, and yet you could call them humanoid and whatnot. But
I'm just looking at another. There's obviously the three-billy gruff. I totally forgot how that story went. I need some more. Like, we might need to do another episode on this.
They believe to be.
Heck, I'd even take a day off of the political stream just to do this because I find this stuff so interesting.
The Ymir was the first of these trolls, and his offspring populated this land that I can't even come close to pronouncing, but Niflheim, I believe. It's supposed to be a mythical land there. And anyway, it's believed to be Norway's glacier area, is what Niflheim's believed, because it's described to be icy and like a land of mist. You know, they come from the land of the ice and snow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Something along
Yeah,
those lines. It's wild, though, because the story start altering once Christianity starts, getting into the region of the Norse, because the Norse people and their culture was touched so much by Christianity that the trolls seem to have adapted their way, much like what it is in the movie. Heads up, folks, they'll ask a guy, make sure there's no Christians in the group. Well, it goes back in because Christians seem to be like what's for dinner as far as these trolls are involved. And
That's actually, I've done some research. That's actually led to people believe that these are not trolls as in, but these are Nephilim. Maybe this is connected to the giant of Kandahar. Would be really interesting to have some people on to talk about this in the future. As I just think that I mean, how do you not find this interesting?
they also claim that's why there's a large stones and boulders near.
I do think that is really weird. Because there's this place called the Troll Wall. And the whole, it's like when the, and I forgot. So I think the story is in Norway that the whole mythology is yep. So this is Traces of Trolls. This is Fjord, Norway. And I'm also going to reach out I just put out a yeah. So asking people for their stories. People from Norway and Scandinavia. Uh, so this is the Norwegian film Troll on Netflix. So this is not in the same year. So apparently it did well. So I might have to, though it seemed more like a kaiju type of film, whereas Troll Hunter from 2010 was a Blair Witch Project horror movie type film. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a watch. I like Troll Hunter. So Troll is taking worldwide storm. Among other places, this film was shot in Ramua and Sunnmøre in the northwestern part of Norway and topped the chart in a total of 93 countries. The tales of trolls are exciting and fascinating and should not be hit and forgotten. Definitely not. According to Netflix, Troll has become the world's most watched movie in non-English language in their streaming service. The trolls have left visible marks in more old Romsdal country. Here you'll find several traces of the colossal giants, often described as dangerous, stupid, and huge. So, guess these are. I'm not sure if these are real or just. So, the young girl, Marit Olter, or Olsterdor, Olstor Otter Storan from Afharand was captured by trolls. Roughly 300 years ago, she explained herself to 8 jurors in Mol who believed her. So this is. I'm not sure if this is real or not. She explained herself to 8 jurors in Mol who believed her. So, according to the story, the jurors believed her. And there are stories in the US and Canada of Sasquatch abductions. Imagine in this day and age telling that to jurors, oh yeah, I got kidnapped by Bigfoot. It'd be everywhere. It'd be crazy. Um, Several sources tell the story of Marete and the 8 jurors tell the story of, are referred to as the wise and sensible men. According to author Carl Malholsberg, who has surveyed both name of place and legend about trolls in Norma and Rome. I guess apparently this is real. It is said that Mare was held captive by the large trolls for nearly 2 years, and several of them had boxes like a fox. While she was there, the troll mother gave birth to a son with the size of a half-grown human. Mare refused to marry him and therefore thrown naked was and there was therefore thrown naked out of the mountain. In May of 1695, Marte was asked by the county governor to come to Model to Moldal with her father to explain herself to 8 jurors. They concluded that the girl was trustworthy her and her right mind, and in her right mind. She probably had been staying with the trolls. Wow, that's really strange. So we might be getting into the meat and potato. And this is the troll wall, so this is what I was talking about. And I'm not sure if that music copyrights. I want to play it safe though. Hmm. That's interesting. I mean, it's nothing related to trolls. It's something related to Sasha Kumbora. No, maybe we should get him on. Ask him his opinion on trolls. In fact, does he even have a Twitter? I'm not even sure if. So the troll, the result of a Hitler of a helter skelter wedding. The dramatic peaks of the famous Trollwagen, the Trolls Wall, are not being ordinary mountains, is perhaps a better known story. The peaks are trolls turned to stone, according to the legend of the Trolls Wall. It started a long time ago when the trolls had a big wedding in the Romsdale Valley. They all partied and celebrated all night and did not notice the daylight approaching. When the sun rose, the whole party was petrified. Today you may have a glimpse of the troll's face amongst the rock, having named like Burura, Brutogoman, Brutata. I'm not gonna even pronounce these anymore. Sorry to all Norwegians. I'm butchering your language. I don't mean any hatred of you guys. I really don't. So Trollvagen is located in the middle of Romsdalen is valley and is Northern Europe's highest vertical rock wall. The height from the top down to the bottom of the valley is around 1,700 meters. I fear and horror. Trolls are deeply rooted in Nordic poetry and fairy tale traditions, with roots in Norse mythology and have spread fear and horror from time immemorial. There were also periods where it was forbidden to have anything to do with such extraterrestrial. Are you suggesting that these trolls are aliens? Not sure if that's the troll band. The oldest Norwegian Christian laws from the 11th and 12th centuries contained a clear prohibition against having contact and seeking knowledge from trolls. In Norway's first national laws from 1276, having contact with trolls was seen as a serious offense that entailed the law's most severest punishment. So when they say 100 years law, I know they talked about that and that when he went to Norway. That's really interesting. So more than 200 troll locations in Moch og Romsdal, more than 200 names of places, mountains, and areas start with the name troll, as well as several alternative names of trolls like Jutul. Interesting. Very interesting. Guys gotta tune in. So some of the places are linked to legends, and others probably originate from the fact that people traveling the areas found to be eerie and slightly frightening, having strange, inexplicable sound. Many of the names probably date from the Middle Ages. Trollheim, perfect for trolls. Stories tell that trolls live in untouched nature in mountain caves, forests, and seas. In that sense, Molchan Romsdal was perfect for trolls, especially the great hiking area Trollheim on the border between Molchan Romsdal and Sortol country. I just have to ask. Am I doing a good job? Not trying to butcher the Norwegian language. Trollheim meaning home of the trolls, and legend says that the mountain in the area where the trolls were originally trolls that this area was originally trolls that turned to stone. The enormous mountain of Trollheimen shows that the trolls who lived here may have been the Colossus Jutol, or mountain trolls. Some of the mountains in Trollheim have such names as Trolletta and Trolla, which is the highest mountain of Trollheimen. And And let's also see this. 1850 MAF. I'm not sure what that. So more. Troll Dungeon in Valda. Get ready for a real troll experience and feel the darkness here and feel the scary darkness at Troll Dungeon in Valda. The escape labyrinth is kind of like a cave with dungeon obstacle. So this is like an escape room, I guess. Yes. Interesting. Thought we were getting a story. At the escape lab. So this is Valdal Activity Park. There are more than 1,500 meters of climbing trails, long zip line, bouncy castles. In addition to the climbing park, there's also a play area, Troll Clinton, where children can jump, play, or take part in activities with trolls in the yard. Yeah, that's Trollkirka, the Trolls Church. Locations with trolls, the troll in their name may be found in several areas. One is Trollkirka in Hatsadalvika municipality, the Trolls Church, which consists of 3 limestone caves with underwater streams and waterfall. 500 meters above sea level in the area, you will also find Trolltinan, Trolldalen, and Trollvatna, the Troll Peaks, the Troll Valley, and the Troll Lake. A troll dragon is living in one of them. He was last seen as late as the end of the 19th century by an old shoemaker, Mats from Varholden, and a person following him. The lake is also said to contain a troll fish with 2 heads, according to legend. That's interesting. And so this is how I'm going to Trollstingham with its 11 steep hairpin bend zigzagging 825 meters above sea level is among the countries, and that is actually beautiful. Is the country's most visited tourist attraction. The trip up Trollstingham Road shows a masterpiece of engineering. However, the magical nature is often most impressive. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Trollton in Sundal. Trollton is referred to as Nordmol's most popular summit ski trip, a fantastic trip with a short hike from Jordalgrund's lovely views and first-class skiing. By spending time with a locally known guide, you will deepen your knowledge about traveling in the winter mountains and get close to the mountain culture in Mora and Romstad. So I'm gonna Well, this is actually some interesting stuff. And I'm not sure if we read this yet. So I just want to go to troll research team. This is from visitnorway.com. You can read this whole thing here. On June 17th, 2023, what they call the world's first and only research station for the species of trolls opened in Rindal. Home of the trolls is not just a research station for trolls, it is also a nature-based experience destined with activities, outdoor adventure, local food, and exotic accommodation options. That's interesting. If you're ever in Norway, that may be a place to go. Troll Fairy Tale. The book of So for the famous book of Edda from around 1220, but the most of the bedtime songs and adventure tales all Norwegians get to hear and love were preserved thanks to event to Asable and Mo in the same era as the Brothers Grimm. So these two apparently collected troll tales. After Balderkinson. There's obviously that's a I gotta do some more. So this is also another inch. And obviously I'm a Christian. So Neanderthals, Scandinavian. So I've do have a problem with evolution. I'm a Christian. Believe God created everything, but we'll just take the so Homo Neanderthals are documented in Europe in Conic for around 130,000 years, according to our. And this is apparently people do have Neanderthal in them. Me, I do think there are other. It gets complicated when you bring this into Christian. Yeah, that's not saying I'm looking to bring here. We're here for the trolls. That's interesting, but I'm looking more for troll sightings. I just saw this article. Apparently, it's the Metro. This is literally just the plot of Troll Hunters. I'm not doubting the article, but saying a Danish is supposed to. So this is, but it's the Danish instead of the. So Danish government hires professional troll hunter. A Danish island is supposed to be infested with tunnel dwelling trolls, which come out to wreak havoc at night. Has been allocated a troll hunter with a budget of that's equivalent of 20 2,005 £250,000. The trolls on the island are supposed to live in burial mounds and have a taste for mischief. No troll-related casualties have ever been reported on the island. The Danish Council for Independent Research allocated. So now this one's saying it's a. I guess this is the budget. I don't. 267,000 pounds to PhD research into supernatural beings on the island, including a fictional troll made up by author Ludwig Manor in 1946. How soon Lars Christian Romer is meant to find the fictional trolls is open to question. Romer says he intends to look for physical manifestation of the mythical and non-existent creatures while he enjoys vast sums given to him by the Danish. Troll sightings are common throughout Scandinavia, and although are rarely as profitable as the hunt on boredom. Nigel Watson, author of The Hanged UFO Incident, says trolls are very much like the fairies of Celtic tradition. Both types of creatures are supernatural, except with remote regions or ancient historical sites. They are often thought to live in Siberian mountains as human beings. The APLC will claim to see trolls and fairies, but increasing the source of any increasingly the sorts of entities are associated with flying saucers. This might be because both types of myths have a strong impact on unconscious fear, on our unconscious fears and desires, or there are some manifestation that elude our sight. Perhaps this site will come up with some answers. Well, I'll say this wasn't entirely. I just saw an arc. There was also, I remember they talked about a troll sighting in Tennessee. Hmm. So here's from r/humanoid cars. Looked at like something interesting in the future. So Norwegian troll hides behind barn and becomes bolder. Circa 1930s, Norway, rural farm. A 14-year-old girl was performing her daily duties on her parents' ranch when she noticed something behind the barn. As she looked closer, she saw two huge eyes and a partially gray, dark gray forehead and huge shoulders peeking out from the barn. She could see the massive shoulders move up and down as the being was moving. It was a humanoid shape, but the head was massive and shaped like a block. It seemed to peek at her, then shy away and slick down. Another 30 seconds or so, and it comes back to look at her. Its face was not scary or mean looking, as she had heard some trolls were. The girl was speechless and scared. The barn, approximately 20 feet in height and anything just barely high behind it, would have to be massive. She had heard the old stories of trolls in Norway, as they are a classic folk lore in her culture. She felt as if the being was also scared and stuck where it was for some reason. She went and told her father, and her father looked at her pretty sharply, and they went out there cautiously, but to inspect. When they rounded the corner, they saw huge, strange footprints in the mud by the barn, but there was no troll. What there was, however, was a huge granite boulder. It was approximately the same mass as what the troll would be, she exclaimed. It must have weighed many tons. The boulder was not on the land previously, as the family would have seen it. Her father told her that some of these beings had the ability to become boulders at will. That's how they hide from people. Others are turned into boulders if they are exposed to too much sunlight. He told her that perhaps she saw the spirit of the stone or the true being behind it. He also had heard fairy tales of there being people that lived in stone. So this seemed plausible. They were very connected to their folklore in this region. The family never experienced any other beings or activity at the property, and the ground around the boulder would always produce the most colorful flowers and plants during springtime. The girl felt a special connection to the boulder and would have picnics out by it and talk to it. She felt that the troll and the boulder were one and the same. She even said that when she looked at it long enough, she would start to see the same face appear. Supposedly, the boulder is still in the very place to this day, happily content in the countryside with vegetables and growing all around it. And there's a Ed. So there's actually the trolls of Scandinavian myth known as the Jotnar, a famously ugly giant that turned to stone in sunlight. The Jotnar, singular Jotun in Scandinavian myths, are usually ugly, often with tuft or sight upside. The word Jotun is derived from the Scandinavian word for giant. A female Jotun is called a Gigar. And that might actually be some evidence. Like, that's interesting. You see these rock formations? They do look like there was something there that can kind of see the mouth, the nose, the legs. That is really interesting. I mean, what do you think? I kind of want to keep ongoing. Let's actually see. Hmm. I'm trying to look. And I want your views on this because I think this is interesting. So that's a really interesting story. That was likely. And that was really interesting, that story on Reddit. Fortunately, it looks like it was the only one. Actually, that's interesting. So this is a known encounter. A gnome. So there's this low grade gnome, probably a meter tall, that roams around my city, and that only kids up to around the age of 7 can see it. There's a lot of these stories about him following kids or trying to play games with them. I don't think he has any malicious intent. I think he's just joking around. I guess you could say he's trolling. You know what I mean? Bad pun, I know. I know. Boo hoo. Punch me in the balls. I'm going to go for as long as possible. So let's continue. This is about Rush. So this is about Yeti. And this is Russian. I'm kind of interested in it. I know this is, but it could be misidentification. He could thought because. All right, so I see. Oh, I am getting TNO vibes. The great trial is close, brothers. Life in the 1800s posted something on the Aurora incident, which was, I mean, there's that. There's apparently a reptilian. A couple days ago, a woman saw a reptilian shapeshifter on an airplane. So, my family is Russian. Both my parents are from Siberia, northern Russia, and were both born in a city called Omsk. Anyways, a couple of days ago, my dad and I got into a conversation that kept deviating from the original topic, and eventually reached a point where we started talking about the paranormal occurrences in our life. I asked him why he believes in Yetis. A long time ago, he told me he believes in Yetis, but he didn't explain why. My dad's not the type of guy who believes in paranormal activity. He thinks about ghosts. He thinks ghosts and aliens are all BS. And it was to my surprise that he believes in Yetis, Sasquatch, Bigfoots, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, he sits me up straight, clears his throat, and tells me the following. So it's from, I guess, there's a town called Sputnik. They're a paper, or a famous newspaper in Russia called Sputnik. I guess it's named after the so it's near Murmansk. It's like, okay, so it's right near the border with Norway. And it's named after the Sputnik craft that, it was the first satellite. It wasn't the first man-made object. That was actually a German V-2 rocket during World War II. It was the first object that was put into space. And looks like we are having connection issues. Apparently stream health is good. So my dad is, all right. So my dad is 51 years old, and it's right. He served in the military. He served in a place called Sputnik, a village close to the Russian border with Norway. If you look up, you can still see barricades where the whole military camp itself, pretty fascinating. All heavy-duty military equipment supplied were always stored far away, even from military camps itself, and kept as far as possible away from human activity, typically in a forest. One day, a group of 10 people, one of whom was my father, were tasked to go on an expedition to a warehouse and restock military supplies in the camp. This required many people because loading up the trucks with heavy equipment and ammunition was rather a grueling task. I can't attest to that. My grandpa, he was in the Korean War, and he was a truck driver, and they'd have to drive these heavy artillery shells. He was in an artillery corps, and actually I think became a captain. So he would drive, and the real task was picking them up and loading. I'm sure that anyone who's watching this later and who has had family in the military or served in the military can attest to this. So this does seem legit. So my father gets in the truck with the others and gets on the road. When they reach the place far later than anticipated because of something along the lines of, we got a flat tire. The place they are going to is located near a city that's on the bank of the hundreds of rivers you can see on the map. And this place was called, so this is also another place. And this is it says Lo Ovozio is a rural locality and the administrative center of Oblast, Russia. All right. They get there during the night. The only thing that was illuminating the forest were the stars. Since it was so dark and everyone was tired, they decided to sleep over at the warehouse. They slept over at a dugout not too far. Once they got there, everyone would take their spot on the floor and says goodnight. But no matter how much my dad was tired, he couldn't fall asleep. He stayed up for another 30 minutes before staying up, seeing everyone with their eyes open. No one was asleep. He had thought he was the only one awake, but he wasn't. The thing that was keeping him up was a sense of discomfort that he couldn't explain. He decided to share this with the others. Everyone nodded and says that they are experiencing the same exact feeling. This wouldn't let them rest peacefully. Eventually, another 30 minutes go by, and the discomfort was now evolved into mild fear and panic. At this point, everyone is really concerned because they've got to wake up early tomorrow to move heavy boxes in. Sleeping was essential. They kept lying in silence. All of a sudden, they hear a very strong thump on the roof of the building. The thumping persists as it sounds, and as if someone extremely heavy is walking on the roof. The roof was wooden. It was a solid roof with grass covering it, and my dad could tell for a fact that it was someone walking because of the creaking the boards made. Simultaneously, everyone, as discovered the next day, starts hyperventilating, and everyone's heart started beating extremely fast. The thumping the creature made was so loud it sounded if Reese did my dad's ears and left his inside shaking. One of the guys passed out. At a certain point, the creature ascended from the roof and started walking around the dugout. One of the guys that was proud enough to open eyes and look around said that the creature was peeking inside, but since it was so dark, he could only see a silhouette. Eventually, whatever it was causing all this left, and everyone went back to sleep. The next day, one of my dad's buddies asked a passing by local about this phenomenon. He said that it was completely in the ordinary and even called a specific name. Unfortunately, my dad does not remember. Also, consider the fact that this all happened during the time of the Soviet Union. As you may or may not know, the Soviet Union was a completely atheist state. No cults, no belief in spirits, no religion, and people who believed that sort of stuff were frowned upon. My father and the other 9 soldiers are ideologically packed elites, and honestly, hearing this from them sounded crazy, and I knew for a fact it was real. Feel free to respond. I'll get a direct response from my dad since we're nearby each other this period. I'll just say that's really interesting because and we were just talking that Yay story is interesting. Oof. It's happened in New Jersey. This one is. I'm just looking. Probably going to go crazy after this. Looking through this subreddit. I'll join it. There, that's really interesting. Possible UFO encounter to talk about. There's a lot of cool stuff here. There's a lot. I mean, Oh, I know this is supposed to be about trolls, but I just found a whole golden mine. I think I've seen this before. It does look kind of fake though. I don't know. That's up. Yeah, I think this comment. It says biggest red flag for me is up here. There's no way that a Chris that I do think that's more of a guy in a hairy suit. Where you guys actually instead I think I promised I'd go as long as possible. I'm gonna do that. What the heck is this? That is so. I think actually we took quite the detour. Let's get back to this.
Churches and homes where these churches are built and these homes that are built over in Norway is because of the trolls coming to these churches to destroy Christians. That's what's actually believed. They try to destroy the church, and then the sunrise or dawn will turn them into rock, which, most everyone knows. The sun, I believe it was even in the Hobbit series.
Yes.
They have the trolls or whatnot are arguing over what they're going to eat with the hobbits, and then he cracks the stone and the sun,
Yeah.
and all that. So instead of basically fighting with the Norse gods in this mythology, the trolls like to get into a little trouble. So I always think of the mischief as
I guess that's why it's called trolling. Man, these bad puns are not going to help me. I'm going to lose subscribers if I keep making more bad puns.
to think of like gnomes or little.
Yeah, that r/humanoid
People, but
encounters. I'm probably going to spend my. Hang on. I gotta tell some of my friends in my Discord server about this.
you're thinking about something.
I think that I'm going to start reading more into those stories.
Something large, and it always seems to involve the Christians. That they don't know that, we don't like the Christians. They want to get them out of here.
This was
and it
talking
was
with
territorial areas of the.
friend. Hang on. Does that show up? No.
These trolls. They're very territorial, natural and territorial in nature. Now it says the trolls do live far away from human society. And it's always, much like Bigfoot, much like all these things, it's funny, they don't live right next door, so you can't see them, but they're up in the mountains. And you've got to imagine way up in the mountains and the hardest places to reach, that's where they want to be. And it's not because, they want to hide from us. It's they want to be left alone. It's kind of the stories that you get. Now they roam, of course, through nature, but they believe the troll, it's believed that hates human beings because of their greed, because they have to have everything that they see. They have to get their hands on it. And it was also true that some of the writings showed that trolls would occasionally slip into little human settlements and steal some things, and it was rare that you could find, but they would come in and steal. I don't know if they would like steal a princess, and take her off into the caverns, do things like that. But Norway is pretty much known in this Norse mythology of this area where it's come from, because it's beautiful. If you haven't just pull up photos of Norway. It's beautiful over there. Yeah, it's cold, but also too, it is beautiful. The whole area like that. And that seems to me like what draws you to the idea of the Vikings and these fjords and all this group of mythology. You're like, that could happen. There's like this old religion and this old way and old feeling. It's almost like the land that time forgot in parts of that cult in that country there. You're like, so something, at least in my feeling, could actually live there. Well, you go to look, and there's been some evidence that slowly builds that makes you believe that some of this Norse stuff and some of this narrative of trolls and things could really have taken place. Now, we know in these earlier writings that human beings fought with the Norse gods, and there was a big battle and people were, killed and all this. And they also believe that during the time of peace that some of these Jotnar and some of the gods married. So, I guess the first troll, which we're not thinking of how they look, but these other peoples, anyway, they married with the gods, interbred before they all come apart, which almost feels like the story of the Watchers. It almost goes along the same storyline. So we talk about with the Watchers interbreeding with the daughters of men. It almost feels that way. But when we get back into we do know that they can't take sunlight. They'll be turned to stone.
One thing is, I'm not sure if I'm 100% set on trolls. I'd like to believe it, but also
that's what you find over the whole thing. And the gods would hold dominion over them, would put them in dark and misty places, So it's almost like they put them up. They didn't want to destroy them, but they didn't want them to get loose either. So they had to put them in a foggy area. You stay there. You stay over in this rough area. Now, legend has it that the Jotnar, or trolls, as we know them now, became extinct because the gods became more frequent and would actually attack them, would put them down there and attack them later and kill them with stuff. And there's even some stories say that they would throw lightning bolts down and hit them, make the flash. And that's what would kill these trolls, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people that are researchers in this, I can't speak about Norway people, but but a lot of the people that are researching this still believe that some trolls occupy the deep forest there in Norway. They also believe this. They believe that not only are they there, but it's their secret. It's Norway's secret, and that they have gone to very extreme lengths to conceal this from the world.
That's cool.
Now, this is the story that we're going with. And they kind of touch on some of this, of course, in the movie. But you go back into, of course, the Germans. The Germans took control of Norway back in World War II, right?
Right.
It hadn't gained its. I mean, you're talking about 1905, I believe, 1904, 05, something like that, 06. Right in that area was when Norway gained its independence from Sweden. So, I mean, it was just right after the 1900s. Then World War II starts. Well, then the Germans take it. Boom. So you look into this, there's some writings that talk about when the Nazis occupied that area and when it ended.
I like to. So one thing I was thinking of, there could have been encounters by German squads, perhaps a Norwegian resistance fighters high in the, kind of similar to the Canada, would be a similar thing to the Kandahar giant, except in Afghanistan, it's Norway. Instead of Taliban, it's Norwegian resistance. And instead of the U.S. Army, German trolls, the Kandahar go on. What I'm saying, and I think any stories of German encounters probably they were written down, but probably the documents were lost. They were probably most of them were probably not even kept in Norway. They were probably taken to Germany, and were probably got incinerated in perhaps an Allied area, like in Dresden, kind of like what happened with the supposed Spinosaurus skeletal remains. If you don't know, there's a Spinosaurus, and this is apparently confirmed. So I do believe in dinosaurs. Yes. Apparently there was and Spinosaurus actually used to be one of my favorites, besides the T-Rex when I was growing up. Apparently the Germans in the 30s and 40s, there was a full Spinosaurus skeleton in, forgot what city. Let me look into this. It was found by German archaeologists in Egypt. And it was in Munich, actually, according to Wikipedia. It was in Munich, but in April of 1944, so around the 24th and 25th, apparently. The museum there that had this specimen was bombed, was unfortunately targeted in this bombing raid. You see, unfortunately, civilians got targeted during World War II. You know what happened with Dresden and Leipzig. I believe those were the two cities that suffered the worst bombings. They're rebuilt today, Dresden and Leipzig, but during World War II, joint Western allies, the USA and the UK, they bombed these German cities, because that's what Germans, and this is something I could probably get into later, but it was all fear. You should watch Alex Jones when he explained him talking about Russia, Ukraine, the fear factor, and bring up examples of World War II. Very interesting, but we should continue.
And then there was a threat of Soviet communism in that area. NATO.
I was going to say continue. So it's totally possible if any troll encounters or any stories of troll encounters, they probably those stories got moved to somewhere in Germany. So like Berlin, it could have been moved to some sort of place in Germany that got bombed during the war, and those rings were burnt up in the fires, lost time. So,
all right, got together, and they wanted to fight against communism. That's what they combined for, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Well, they came to Norway because it shares a border with then, it wasn't Russia, of course, it was the USSR, the hammer and sickle. Well, you would think that they would welcome NATO, right? You would think that, okay, we don't want any more of this happen with Germany. This is what we want. Y'all come on in. We're going to help keep this separated. We share some land, but we're cutting that loose. We don't want nothing to do with them. That didn't happen.
No?
No. During the Cold War, Norway didn't accept NATO. Not as a guardian, but it laid down these rules. Norway's like, okay, here's the rules we need you to follow. I want you to listen to these rules, all right?
Okay.
One of the rules that they wanted to go by was no Allied maneuvers or occupation in the country of Finnmark, no foreign troops or Norwegian soil during peacetime.
Denmark or Fenmark?
Finnmark is a little town there.
Okay.
It's not a town, it's a region.
Finnmark is an actual, not a town, but a section of Norway. Finnmark, and no Allied Navy or air maneuvers east of 24 degrees. So you're like, that's putting a place out there. It's almost cutting an area out. Look, so you got to think about this, okay? We're going to take a whole look at this thing, and
Like a game reserve
Yes.
for the trolls.
yes, the no foreign troops. All right.
All right.
Well, you got to imagine if they were foreign, if we were part of this and we came to Norway, well, then there's huge empty parts of land back then. All right.
I'm going to assume that the U.S. government and UK government, and then they took control. They were just like, Captain, you hear me? I am the captain now, and I am going to decide what to do with these trolls. Could have been target practice, Maybe that's what also the Germans may have done. Maybe. I'm not sure. Someone would have to correct me. You do a little digging. But let's continue. Yeah. What I'm suggesting is maybe they use trolls as target practice for the Luftwaffe pilot. I mean, why not?
Much like now, of these forests and mountains and all this, where they can keep people out that normally live there. They just don't want to hike and go in there. But if you're a military force, you've got the equipment set up for these things. You're going to go.
Yeah.
But what if the trolls are there? All jokes aside, we laugh because it's trolls because you think of little wild-haired dolls. But what if they're there? So no foreign troops, okay?
Right.
None. So there's no way that you can get in there. We don't want you going in there. Second and third, you got to think of this. Norway, all of Norway is east of the latitude of 24, which takes in all of Finnmark, but the coastal regions and all that. But they restrict all the movements of that other area. So they don't want anybody flying over. They don't want the Navy circling. They want anything being around that. Because if you fly over, what are you going to get? The RAF photograph of a giant Norwegian mountain troll.
Right.
Okay. Now there's a map online that you can go and search up. Now this map allegedly was obtained from this government source there in Norway, who of course didn't want to be spoke, wanted to be totally anonymous when you start reading in any of this. But anyhow, this anonymous person of this government that sent this map to all these people and let these other researchers found that I would say all this, but anyway, it's posted online, says that there's an area, and he draws a part in the map that says there's a giant species of troll in this area, and that's why Norwegian's Cold War foreign policy was so this area could remain untouched. And he claims of being in the know of all that. But here's something that's pretty wild. The USSR performed several nuclear tests in an area near Murmansk, Russia, close to the border of Norway during the Cold War. So the country of Norway, they go wild, like, look, they call for a stop to all these tests. Of course, as any country would be, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Any country would be like, you're not going to be setting nuclear bombs off on my border. This isn't be like Canada and the U.S. and the U.S. just testing bombs up there at Niagara Falls like it's a joke. Canada be like, what are you doing? You can't do that just because it's up here and all this. So they call for a stop. But there's a story of a government, I guess you could say, I wouldn't say prime minister, but a person in the government who said, and this is supposed to be that in the present, there was some times of course, anger and rebellion going on, right? That they didn't want all this done. But he claims that more than one time that he heard a little backroom whispering. Some guys involved in this that were some top players in the government between the USSR and Norway that claimed that the biggest risk for nuclear testing that close to Norway wasn't angering the people of Norway, but angering what this fella called the ancient landlords of Finnmark.
That's crazy.
Said you can't be doing that. And also, too, here's another thing
The
that was
trolls
really
don't
wild.
like nuclear testing.
No, they like the rumbling and all this. But here's something else they brought up. During that time, they had many avalanches were recorded and many landslides were recorded. Now, publicly, it was written in papers and talked about that it was due to the vibrations of these bombs. But several troll researchers and even some conspiracy theorists in that group say it wasn't because of that. It was because of the flashes from the nuclear bombs were turning the trolls to stone. So how many trolls were there? Now, the USSR was notorious, and we remember this as kids in the Cold War too, growing up in it, but they were notorious for its sealed borders. You remember that they wouldn't let anybody in. It was airtight.
Yes.
You couldn't get in and nobody's getting out. And they would go to great lengths. I remember all the movies we used to watch, that involved all these, what was the old movie, Ruskies and all this, it's all American actors, but they're pretending because it's more Cold War propaganda. Well, here's a funny thing. There's no better, I guess you could say, an idea of how tight their border system was than the border they shared with Norway. During this time, there was a very vast and wide stretch of sand between these two countries up there, okay?
Uh-huh.
Now, if you check with military
I
experts...
think I already talked about that last Saturday. Yeah, that is true. There was. And you apparently Steve Wildoff is being Dana White and Donald Trump right now. Imagine if I get big in the next year or so, and imagine if this is the one. This, instead of one of the weekday, I bring him on the Saturday stream and we talk about this. Heck, I might do a joke where we talk about troll and we have Donald Trump as that would be
and historian.
That would be hilariously funny. Boy, you can't, because Trump is troll, not because he look like when he just trolls the ever love and crap out of people
and all that today.
Oh, I didn't mean for this to get political, but it's true.
And they're interviewed during about this time. They'll tell you this, that these were there to detect crossings by defectors trying to leave the Soviet Union. These big lumps of sand, these big areas of sand. But there's some serious Norwegian troll researchers believe it was completely different reasons. See, the sand borders, if you will, is what we're going to call them, were not just large, but they were level. A level, flat area of sand. Like a large area to do what? To gather footprints. Now, people would cross in and out there. The Russians, the USSR, could see that they were leaving tracks, leaving that area. All right, so they could track you down through all this sand.
Yes.
But it's argued by these researchers that they're like, but you could easily brush it off. People wanting to leave there could carry, limbs and whatnot and brush your tracks away. The researchers today believe that they were there for tracking trolls possibly coming into Russia at the time.
Really?
Traveling into the USSR.
Now, I've never heard of this.
Yeah. Now, of course, at the end of the Cold War, there was some stuff, and they said that the activity around the Finnmark area slowed dramatically. But there's a lot of troll researchers believe that the trolls were just hidden in caves up in the mountains, and that now they're beginning to kind of move around some more. Okay. Now, how crazy as that is.
Yeah.
Because the Norwegian and Russian militaries are kind of starting to build stuff up around the Finnmark region again. Now, there's an article that was published in the Barents Observer there in Norway, and they were talking about it was strengthening its border forces in that region and modernizing much of the area along that border, and that Russia even displayed a presence on that side also. But it was evidenced by some satellite imagery that you can go online and find that shows that there's some tactical subs in those areas, and there's also MiG bunkers nearby. Now, these mobile nuclear missile platforms are on position, what many people believe are for what? Guarding against trolls entering Russia.
That's...
and we talked about that Yeti. Perhaps they weren't seeing a Yeti. Perhaps it could have been some sort of troll. Because they didn't say... that one guy they were talking about, he saw only the silhouette. He didn't see what it actually looked like. So there's a chance. I think that's really interesting.
I love this story. Right?
It's madness. And like, look, folks, I don't know how much of this holds water. These are things that I've read from all across the interweb, everything you can dig up and find. It's wild. Now, the BBC even reported on a move and that even featured there was a video inside of a base. Now, like we said, they stepped up, Norway stepped up this whole military thing, and that they had this.
I mean, it is strange that this is apparently during the Cold War, according to this, was pretty well for. I saying that most of the action, the spark point for a conflict that could turn the Cold War into World War III was in Berlin. You had, obviously, after the war, Berlin was split. Probably shouldn't have been. That was a stupid move, that just asking for war. But somehow we didn't come out of we didn't have a Cold War. We didn't have World War III. We had a Cold War. We didn't have World War III.
This base built in the Arctic Circle. They're said midway between these, what they called two large troll areas there. So the BBC takes and does a video of this. Well, there's this researchers now believe, many of the troll researchers or just any of the researchers believe that this was a smokescreen to take away from the real use of the base. They believe that the real use of the base is to launch missions and spec ops out of it to get into the surrounding caves and mountainous areas there to try to knock down and if not totally remove the troll population from that part of the world. Now, it's just me telling you this sounds insane. Now,
I love it.
There's other signs that they say
agree.
too that makes you wonder, because now there's
I could see, the bases being used to go in Norway, being used as normal standard military bases, but they also have a function to take down troll. Like, maybe it's a concealed part. Don't know. What are your thoughts?
privatization on several of these former military installations there in Norway, and many of these are radar stations. So they're not open now, they're privatized, okay?
Right.
Much like the prison system's getting to become, which gets a little wild. Now, there's some troll researchers say that there's some official sources have been released that say these dishes use this have-stare technology, which is the same technology that the U.S. uses in its missile defense. But there's many of the people that work in this privatized area, these radar stations, they want to keep asking this. They go, what you don't understand is they're not looking to the sky. They're sweeping across domestic lands. They've pointed them inside and they're sweeping across our land. Like, why would you be doing that unless you're looking for something big on the ground moving?
Right.
Well, if you know there's no military on our soil, what are you looking for? You got all this stuff unless you're looking for giant Norwegian mountain trolls, right?
That's exactly
as
right.
crazy as it is. Well, someone who looked deep into these subjects was the late Eric Natterud. Now, he passed away in 2010. He was a famous Norwegian cryptozoologist, a retired teacher, sea serpent investigator, and he even researched some of the hairy hominids that he liked. Now, he'd gone on many expeditions, that he even operated a website. He dealt with sea serpents and troll research. Now, he would like to set people straight that trolls were not gnomes, is what he would always say, but bigger than human-sized humanoids.
Watch Troll Hunt. Great movie. I've still got to do the review. It's coming along. I'm going to publish it.
There's things that he would always like to go on and tell them. But he actually, besides his insights on all of this troll stuff, he did various sea serpent and lake monster stuff. He would research really into their sightings, but he would always say that he's not associated with monster hunters, but he did contribute to the British Columbia Scientific Cryptozoology Club and Jan Ove Sundberg's Global Underwater Search Team. So he was really into going out, boots on the ground. I'm going to get out there and find out some stuff. But if you ask him, he said he was a self-proclaimed troll expert. And he would get a load of this, eyewitness accounts. Now, he never talked about this conspiracy. What he believed in was the trolls, but he thought that it was being hush-hushed for a reason. But here's one of the hush-hush stories I want to read you that comes from a lot of this. And there was a local newspaper there in Norway. Gudbrandsodden is the name of this newspaper. And it says a bizarre car accident.
I have a subscription to that.
Do you get that?
Yeah.
All right. I don't forget what their local football team is, but
The comic section of that paper is amazing.
I got you. Yeah, fair. It says a bizarre car accident has happened on one of our mountain roads between Vinstra and Galal. A brand new and deserted BMW was found totally wrecked this morning. The police admits that the destruction of the vehicle seems uncalled for, as there was no sign of a collision with another car. Neither were there any skid marks in the gravel cover of the road indicating a panic stop for moose or sheep. The wire fence along the road was ripped open, but I have yet to see a perfectly maintained
This is what
wire
we were
fence
talking about
around
earlier.
here, the policeman told the reporter. The presumed car owner was found in the vicinity in a severe state of shock and disorder. He was taken to Lillehammer Hospital by the ambulance just in case alcohol, they believe, was the culprit. An eyewitness, however, claims that the hysterical and shaking man screamed again and again, "It bloody stomped my car on purpose," while the ambulance personnel worked hard trying to tie him to the stretcher and eventually succeeded in calming him down with appropriate drugs. You like that? It
That is
stomped
crazy.
my car. Now, there were some other incidents that goes, apparently in 1982, there was a crash landing of a little commuter plane. And the witnesses claimed that what they had seen was British fighter jets right after that, circling that area after they say the aircraft that crashed had tail damage. Now, how would you get tail damage just flying over there? Now, they don't know if these jets were British or not, but there's some theory that the passengers on the plane had seen something that they shouldn't have, and they needed to be silenced before it got out, before anybody said anything else. Now, you got to think about this too. Now, we always hear these things where they're trying to keep stuff under wraps. Like they try to say that maybe it was these wolves here in the States were killing cattle, and people are trying to say, well, it was bear, because they want the wolf population to pick back up. So they kind of play it off on the wrong one. Well, some researchers believe that that's what's going on over there, that there was some increase in what they call polar bear attacks on human beings in these areas. And several polar bear were killed, but they believe that they were killed to cover up the activity of malicious trolls in those areas also.
Man.
So we don't know for sure. And look, it's me just reading and talking about this sounds like it's coming straight from the movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't even sound right, the stuff that you found. Because in the movie, they talked about these fences. Well, you read this stuff that there's these big electrical zones that they believe that's actually up there to keep these trolls in.
I've done a little research actually. Now I think there could be multi-role. Could be used for multiple roles. Just to try and quell the public suspicion. I mean, that's just personally what I would think. Again, I'm not 100% on board. I'm just trying to rationalize this, trying to actually dissect, think. I mean, I'd love to continue to do this.
But there's also some Swedish troll
There's some
sightings
Swedish-
in the area too.
Okay.
In the area in Sweden, get a load of this. Now, a lot of this stuff was come from a website, and they had to be translated. You had to get it all going.
Right.
And it starts out, it says, "I've said several times that I have seen a strange being running around in the woods. The first feeling I get when I see these is fear. You just want to run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Explaining what they look like is very hard. So I've made a god-awful silhouette in paint. I've never seen them in broad daylight, so therefore the picture is black. I see them in the winters after sunset. The last time I saw one was in the middle of November. Then the bus driver almost hit it. The first time I saw one was when I was very small. It was lurking just by the edge of the forest at one of our farm summers houses, watching the pigs that we had then. I'd forgotten about it, but suddenly remembered it this winter." It says they're most often roughly 150 centimeters tall, but I've seen one the same size as a full-grown man. Now, see, it doesn't sound like they're talking about giants right here.
Right.
It says it looks like they've got a neck, or I'm sorry, haven't got a neck, and are regarded as knobby by me. Also, they run really fast, even though they have legs that are about half as long as ours. Now, my best friend, who used to be my neighbor, saw them first. And in fact, I was the one who'd saw them but forgotten about it. I got frightened, to say the least, and she didn't dare go out to bring the horses in on her own. The horses would staring in towards the forest, And when she looked that way, she saw two of these beings running back and forth on an old forest path. It was moonlit, so all she could see was big black silhouettes. Says me, I thought she was kidding until she refused to go to the stables alone. And you could tell a long way off that she was genuinely frightened. I've never seen these together with someone unless you count the bus driver who veered away from one. And the bus driver didn't say anything. And they were only two of us on the bus. The other girl didn't notice anything, just that he had slipped off the road. I was on to say that it doesn't leave any footprints. One winter, I met a big one on the road when I was going to see a friend. We walked on each side. At first, I thought it was an old man. Then I started to think and realized that no old person goes out late at night. Then I thought it was an illusion. Nope. The snow creaked with each step it took. And then I thought it had to be my friend who was kidding me and walked funnily to frighten me. So I called her name. Then it went down into the ditch by the side of the road. And that's when I saw the profile and understood what it was. And it laid down and it never went up again. And the snow looked untouched. How wild is that? It laid down in a ditch and just kind of let the snow start covering up. So you're like, what are you seeing? I mean, you're not describing something huge. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This one says, I don't know if it lied down or if it dug under the snow, but it probably became afraid when I started to shout at it and it just hid. Another one says, remember in my childhood when I visited an
Reminds me of the story we heard on r/, humanoid. I guess it's humanoid encounters. Yes. You have the what was it? The story from the 30s where the girl, she described the troll and said the troll was scared.
old man in a house deep in the forest. He claimed to have seen trolls on the hillside in the forest several times. He told me that some of them were quite small, but larger than goblins. They were knobby in order to hide in the forest. One says, I've seen one. One fellow here, Krauf, says, I've seen one, or at least something similar. Says mine had considerably longer legs. I believe the legs were marginally longer than the body ball itself and looked very funny. Says this was a long time ago, 03 or 04, I think, a summer night with a full moon, so it was exceptionally bright that night. And I remember that it looked like a ball with two legs, which if you think back to the movie Troll Hunter, that almost sounds right, a ball with two legs.
Right.
Says, I don't remember if I saw arms or though, but it says, anyway, I was out driving my moped in the middle of the night, and then it stood by the side of the road. I didn't understand what it was at first, thought it was an elk's ass or something, but the legs were too thick. It was really nothing that looked like an elk, but it was the only thing that I could relate it to that wasn't too far-fetched. Anyhow, it just kept standing there, and I've been waiting for maybe 10 seconds for it to move, but it didn't seem to hear me at all. So I turned on the gas a bit and then it reacted. And what I saw then is when it got very strange, it ran on two legs, roughly like a human, straight into the woods. Now imagine that you take an elk or something similar and cut off the entire back section and make it black and more fluffy and long haired fur. And then you let the back section run around. So when he starts talking about fur, I was like, oh, what's he talking about? That doesn't, I always think of trolls as like in the movie. You think of leathery skinned.
Sounds like he saw like a Sasquatch.
Or maybe it's wearing clothes. Maybe it's wearing like some sort of Norse clothes. He said, I drove past.
That's interesting to think about.
And tried to see it again, but it either run too far into the woods or it was hiding. I didn't have time to look around, he said. So he got the heck out of there. And another one says, this is a funny bit, actually. I came home from a vacation trip in southeastern Sweden. He says, we were just staying up into the woods. So me and my boyfriend decided at night to go up on a hill just next to us and have a beer. After a while, I saw something that looked just like what you described between the trees, and it seemed to run on two legs at an enormous speed and was grayish brown. So there's all these people start chiming in. They start coming in. One guy named Eldron says, I've seen something similar too when I was young and walked a lot in the hills of northern Sweden with my grandmother. Yeah, get up with your grandma. Now listen to this. It says that I can't remember, but we went one evening to watch a sunset near a mountain. It said, when I looked out into the woods, we were driving along the old gravel road. I saw something that fits that description precisely about 10 meters in the wood. I related what I saw to my grandmother, who looked serious when I told her. Then she turned her car homewards, and started to tell me that she lived here when she was a child. And then she stopped and pointed to the forest where you could see an almost collapsed house from the 19th century. There I lived, she said, and we moved because of the one you saw. And then she said that she'd been playing with her sisters when she had seen it running quickly past her, and then she started to scream. Then her dad had to come and fetched her and took her away. And later at night, her grandfather sat down with her and said that she had seen the trolls. Well, since then, grandmother has never talked about the place or anything. When I've asked about it, she just said, I don't dare. They mustn't come here. That frightens you a bit, but now I'm sure I'll never get any info or any more out of it because grandma died half a year ago and she was the last person alive in that family. But I wonder why trolls made her so scared. So these are all coming. But if you listen to the stories from Norway and you listen to the stories from Sweden, it's almost like two different things. They're not quite identical in what what you would have to believe, or at least what I don't know a thing in the world about trolls. You get these different sightings.
You're built like one.
Yeah, I am. I'm definitely built like one for sure. But there's a bunch of ones here. There's one. Here's this one said, I've actually seen something similar a couple of years ago when I was out hunting in west central Sweden, and it was September morning, just before sunrise. And that morning, I saw some strange being walking across the road in front of my car. It wasn't quite as fat as you would picture. And it didn't look like it had any fur at all. I'm not sure since it's still dark outside, but it might have been dark green to black in color. There were just three of us in the car, me, my dad, and another one in the hunting party, and all of us saw it. As a hunter, I can say directly that it was not a wild boar, elk, or bear. It had a broad or no neck at all and a head and foot creature with legs. That's what he calls it, a head and foot creature with legs. He said, I guess it was 1 meter to 1.2 meters tall. No one could explain what it was. I've never seen anything like it before, and if I see one again, I'll shoot one. He said, now I saw it in the light.
There's actually an American encounter apparently in Tennessee. I think we talked about it on the last one. Well, from here.
Out of the car about 30 or 40 meters ahead of me. That's what he said. Now, I've talked to a guy who's what he called the team elder in the group, and he told me that he'd seen something similar like that walked into the woods a long time ago as he was a forester. And he said he told me a story about an experience from some time in the past when he had been a forester, that he had seen something that he did not know what it was. But it was sometime in late autumn or early morning as the light started to dawn, said it looked like a small human without a neck. And he came out into a mire and stood on one of the sides, looking at him for a few seconds, and then turned and disappeared back into the woods. So what are they seeing?
Right?
What are you seeing in all this stuff? Because look, in my mind, I've got and I keep beating the drum, the troll hunter stuff in my mind of these large, leathery, gray-skinned creatures is what I keep thinking about. But this sounds like this doesn't sound anything like Bigfoot. These are smaller. These are more like gnome-like, or just small orgs, or whatever you could possibly think of what it might be. I will tell you this. I've read some stuff online that people said that they were 1/8 troll, that trolls would actually.
That's really interesting. Remember talking about the narrative? That's really interesting.
The reason you don't see as many human-sized ones is they were bred out. There were things we're talking about where they would come into these, coming in for food or for safety or whatnot. People would take them in and slowly, and then somebody may breed with a female troll, or a male troll may get him an old gal. And next thing you know, you got a half troll kid. And then it just goes down to where the trolls were, the humanoid sized trolls were bred out. And people claim that there's still troll in some people's bloodlines in Norway.
That's crazy.
Now, there is a troll sighting that took place. This is what it says I believe in Tennessee. Now, yeah. Says this happened to me in October of 2008, right before Halloween. My daughter and I were driving to my mother's house about 5 miles away from my subdivision for our usual Sunday dinner. Now, we live in Campbell County, East Tennessee. So my parents live pretty far out in an isolated rural area. The road out there is a 2-lane blacktop, which is very windy and curvy. I was late for dinner, so I was speeding a bit, but I knew the road very well, and having lived there for so long, I came zooming around a curve in the road and immediately had to swerve my car to avoid hitting it, sitting on the side of the road. Now, I slowed down and got a good look at the back side of it. It was sitting with its back to the road, its legs stretched out in someone's driveway, its butt actually on the road. A bad place to be lounging in a blind curve like that. I looked at it. My daughter in the front passenger seat looked at it. It was on her side of the car, so she could see it better, and it obviously terrified her. Now, for what I saw, at first I assumed it was a Halloween decoration some moron had put in the road. It looked like a stuffed dummy or scarecrow type thing. It was wearing all black, a black hat, and a shabby-looking black coat. I even saw some long black hair, oddly shiny. I remember that clearly, really straight down the center of its back. Its posture was odd. It was kind of slumped over, and the back of its coat looked lumpy, like stuffed with leaves, which is one of the reasons I assumed it was a dummy. I was still slowly passing it after having come to an almost complete stop to look at it, beginning to be indignant that someone thought it was a joke to put it in the road, possibly causing an accident. But as I passed it, still staring at it, it turned and looked at me over its shoulder. All I remember seeing for a split second before I hit the gas and got the heck away was glittering black eyes and a black, wrinkled, sunken-in face. Reminded me of a rotten apple for some reason. My daughter turned to me, horrified, matching my own expression. I'm sure, and I drove away as fast as I could drive. Now, I told my mother, and she laughed at me. Even with my daughter backing up my story, she didn't believe me. I insisted on calling it a troll. For some reason, that's what my mind jumped to. I still think about it every time I go by there. Unfortunately, I would like to forget I ever saw it, but at least I've never seen it again. Now, I think that's funny. And the reason I bring that one up here is that's three complete different things of what you would think a troll would be.
Right.
So I think we're getting these names twisted. At least for me, we're getting them twisted.
Nobody knows what to call it, so they're just calling it a troll.
Well, I believe in Norway. I believe the Norse. I believe they know. I believe it is a troll. I believe what they deal with, what they've got going on is truly a troll. My thing is this. We can scoff it off. People are going to laugh. People are going to email us. People are going to message us and all this stuff that it's ridiculous and this whole thing is made up and all that. But is it? Is it any more ridiculous to think that there may be a country harboring trolls and they're trying to keep their people safe and all this from it? Is it any more ridiculous than believing that there's a monster in Lake Champlain? Is it any more ridiculous than believing that there's a giant, hairy hominid that could be the ancestor of Gigantopithecus living in the Pacific Northwest or living in Texas or living wherever? Although the only proof, real proof we ever have of it is nothing. People are going to get mad to say that, but we don't have anything. We got pictures and firsthand accounts and foot castings and all that, but every bit of that can be
Usually
fake.
blurry photos.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
people
100%
have
right.
these, but we don't have anything of it. So to start casting doubt, for Bigfoot researchers to start saying people that believe in trolls are idiots, or for ufology and all this stuff, all these stories that we do and all the crazy stuff that we talk about, aside from ancient history, there's no proof in any of it.
That's right.
It's all your belief system. So you can't cast doubt on one person's belief compared to another. You can't say, I love Bigfoot, but I hate Chupacabra. You're like, well, they walk hand in hand. They're all in the same group when you start talking about this stuff. So is it any more outlandish to believe that takes place in Norway? For some reason, I remember you talking about this, you're like, okay, I'm sold. We were talking about, I believe, on the Elite show.
You were talking about something in Romania.
Yeah. Why is it? The thing about Norway, because I don't know why, but it just feels right. Even in Sweden and all, but because the Swedish, they talk about the elves and the gnomes and the little people and all that stuff. I don't know why I'm so fascinated by these more than anything else. I don't know if it's because I didn't deal with it growing up, that we were beat over the head with Bigfoot, that's kind of what you're like, I want to do something new. But when I started looking at this troll stuff and like I said, folks, I don't know if any of those accounts are true. I found a lot of that written on the internet. I know a lot of it corresponds with the movie. A lot of this stuff comes out there. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if that's really how it all goes down. I don't know. But if it is remotely close, it really makes an interesting story that you got to look at and be like, I'm sure there's other reasons, like we've talked about. There's other reasons for it, like the idea of the thylacine. The thylacine, something's happened at this, but could it be covered up by logging industry? Could the logging industry be what's covering up the idea of families of Bigfoot? They like the stories on Mount St. Helens that they talked about after the eruption. There were a bunch of dead Bigfoot found up there and all this. Is all this stuff real? Is the government actively? Now, I know they would, we always say that because it's the easiest way to brush it off. All the government's hiding it. The government's hiding it. You realize how many groups the government would have to hire to keep hiding all this stuff?
Right.
Wouldn't it be easy to talk about it? But how hard would it be to do it if you threaten somebody with their job? If somebody really, if you really got to do your job and you've got a family and you've got, a mortgage and you need the insurance, and they're like, look, you don't say nothing. You say something, we're going to take you to court. We're going to sue you. We're going to take all your stuff and you're going to lose your job. It's not real hard to keep somebody to go, man, I ain't going to say nothing, man. My job's pretty good. And I don't care if Bigfoot got burned up, or I don't care if there's trolls out there. You know what I mean? I don't really care.
Sounds familiar, right? Mm-hmm. Wink, wink.
It's going to look the other way. You got that Kenny Powers. If you want to start messing with somebody, start with him, because I ain't looking. You got to look away. That's the whole thing. So
yeah. I hope it's real, because I like to think about these giant mountain trolls still living somewhere in the mountains.
That photo
by the fjords and stuff. I hope it's real.
I want that photo in a poster for in here.
Right? That's really cool.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Never let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Yes.
Let's take a break, folks. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives.
That is the end of it. And I think that's where we end. So what is your thoughts and opinions? Leave them down below. Maybe you want me to do more trolls. Like, if an overwhelming majority of the fans want me to do trolls, I will do it. I respect the fans. Leave it down below, and I will see you later. Here, like, share, comment, subscribe, click the bell for notification. I will see you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.